fight IQ?
I don't think there's nobody in the game that has the fight IQ that I have.
Off the charts.
His fucking IQ.
The highest fight IQ maybe ever.
This guy hits hard. He's tough. He's this, he's that. And this guy has a dream. But my fight IQ will win this fight.
Welcome to another episode of the Fight IQ podcast. Today we are bringing you a post-fight perspectives on UFC 311 Islam versus Moicano. Starting at the bottom of the card, we had Tagir Ulanbekov versus Clayton Carpenter. Undefeated prospect in this one, came in and unfortunately had a big upset. Tagir looked pretty good, managed to get the decision victory over him.
Yeah, man. Ultimately, Tagir was able to really just outmuscle Clayton Carpenter, do a lot of smudging against the fence and stuff like that. But that's kind of what you got to prepare for when you're going up against somebody with that kind of a grappling base. You know, I think Clayton Carpenter does have, you know, a good career ahead of him in the UFC. He's going to be a really good guy as far as a prospect goes. But, yeah, it's not really the most star-making performance for Tagir.
No, yeah, you know, that was the thing for me is I saw both of them do well, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that was a super one-sided match. Clayton Carpenter had his moments. Tagir looked big. Clayton Carpenter definitely had a size disadvantage coming into that, and I think that maybe played a little bit of a role as far as him trying to find that range. Mm-hmm. Overall, good fight. I think both are going to have decent futures in the flyweight. It's nice to have as many new names as we can in that division since it's suffering a little bit with high-level competition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, flyweight's always one of those ones that's just on the verge of a lot of things just going wrong matchmaking-wise because Pantoja's already ran through everybody. Everyone's already fought each other at the top pretty much. Like, there's very few matchups that haven't already been made at the top of flyweight, so it's kind of getting weird. So it would be really cool to see, you know, more fighters break through into the top 10. Tagir, I don't know if he's going to hang too well up there, but, you know, we'll see. Yeah. You know, maybe he's able to make some adjustments and all that good stuff and get a little bit better. And we'll move on to Ricky Turcios versus Bernardo Sopage. Bernardo gets it done on this one. Ricky Turcios did want to make it a fight, and it was a very entertaining fight. Turcios brings it every time, man, but Bernardo was able to, you know, get it done and secure the win here.
Yeah, yeah. Bernardo looked good. He got the win, had that pressure. I mean, Ricky Turcios brought it to him, though. It was one of those cases where there were a handful of moments where I'm like, man, this fight might be getting close to getting stopped. We might be seeing a finish getting set up here. And then all of a sudden, he's got this, like, extra gear that he just kicks on, and he comes back at you, and he just starts swinging wild, and he makes you go defensive long enough for him to kind of recover. And, great fight, super entertaining, but Sopai got it done. Just had that little bit more pressure, looked a little cleaner than Turcios did for sure.
Yeah, man, and I love having fighters like Ricky Turcios around. It's like, even though they're not winning every fight, you know that when they're showing up, they're coming to scrap, like, regardless. Yep. Like, they're going to, if you're holding them down, they're going to fight everything they can to get up. And it's not the most defensively sound style to have because when you're frantic like that, you're not making the best decisions defensively. And that's what Ricky Turcios runs into. On the way of scrambling back up, he's getting his back taken. You know, during these very high-paced moments he's still getting caught, you know. So ultimately, I just feel like there's just a few adjustments Ricky Turcios needs to make, and he'll be a really good fighter because he has that fight in him, you know.
Yeah, he's the spazzy white belt of the division, right?
Exactly, dude.
He's not necessarily, like, really good, but he's very dangerous if you're not paying enough attention.
100%.
Yeah. Oh, this one was a bummer. Rinya Nakamura versus Muin Gafurov. This was one of those big upsets. I think it was my last hope for Japanese fighters to do anything cool, man. I think I'm done with them.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I want to believe as well, bro. And I don't think unless we get like somebody like Takaru in the UFC, and even then, I don't want him to make it over there because I don't want my hopes to be crushed. I'll just imagine that somebody like Takaru can come into the UFC and just like fuck up everybody. But as far as this fight, I was very puzzled by Rinya Nakamura's game plan. He really waited until like the middle of the second round when he was already pretty much beat up by Gafurov, who was having a lot of success on the feet, to start implement his wrestling, which is his whole game. So I think, he went in there kind of thinking this guy from Dagestan is going to out-grapple me no matter what the fuck I do. And so It was a bummer, man. I really wanted to see Rinya Nakamura at least, give a little bit more fight, but it seemed like Muin Gafurov just put it all together well. He stuffed the takedowns when they came after him. He outstruck him. He was really feeling himself when it comes to, the striking out there. He was feeling very confident, and Nakamura was just getting hit with everything, man. Overhands. He was getting all of his takedown stuff. Really didn't have much success at all. So very disappointing.
It was interesting in that way because I definitely expected Rinya to try and push the pace with his grappling more. But I think the more and more that it kind of kept getting denied for him, he kept not being able to find the opportunities to actually attempt to try and grapple or at least start chain wrestling or something like that. It put him in a position where he was really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I think that Gafurov just kind of took advantage of that and just really ran away with it.
Absolutely, man. And Rinya Nakamura not grappling in the first round, I feel like was a really big, because his striking is not really set up to just be there by itself. Like, he should not be out there trying to win a striking match with anybody because it's not that good.
It's not.
And he needs to be implementing his grappling in order to set up things like his big overhand and stuff like that, because the shots look very similar on their entries. So the fact that he just didn't even start using his wrestling till like the middle of round 2, and by that time all of that explosiveness is gone. He's been dropped a few times, and Gafurov is just able to shuck off all those takedowns. So it was a very puzzling performance from Rinya Nakamura, and he's no longer undefeated.
It's a bummer. Moving up the card, our last early prelim, we had Carol Rosa versus Eileen Perez. Our girl gets it done again.
Yeah, man.
It was a decision. It was a closer fight than maybe I thought it was going to be, but Carol Rosa is definitely no joke when it comes to the striking. She's got great leg kicks. It was just on the ground. It didn't seem like she was terribly comfortable.
Yeah, man. What I really like about Eileen Perez's game, and you don't see this in a lot of fighters at all, but just confidence in their grappling.
Yes.
Like no matter what happens, I'm gonna get you to the ground, and she has that regardless of if she's failing takedowns or not. She's really gonna at least put a really good effort into trying to secure some of these takedowns and not bailing halfway through them. She really tries to be active on top with her passing, but I feel like one of the big things that she needs to work on is deciding where she wants the fight to take place, because she got a really sick takedown in the beginning of round 1. And then immediately goes, she passes to half guard, she starts working half guard a little bit and then just lets her up and then tries to shoot more takedowns. It's like, what are we doing? Yeah. You already had her where you wanted her. Like, why did you choose to let her up, to scrap a little bit and then try to shoot more takedowns? It just made no sense. But ultimately, I think she's very talented. And I think when it comes to her grappling, she's only getting better from here. And that's just somewhere where she's going to be able to steamroll a lot of girls. Like we saw how far Carla Esparza was able to get with her grappling. Unfortunately, I feel like if she's going to hit a brick wall eventually by somebody who's probably a little bit bigger than her. But yeah, man, it was a great performance by Eileen, securing a good win here.
Yep. Yeah, really nice. I'm curious to see how she does in the top of the division. Obviously, Kayla Harrison is being up for a title shot next, and that being probably the biggest threat in that division. So it'll be an interesting one to see if that kind of nullifies the grappling, and if Perez ever gets to that point, how she kind of approaches somebody that's going to have a very similar style.
Heck yeah, man. And one other thing I kind of want to bring up is that you can tell she is working on her striking too. The switch kick she was landing from her lead leg was really nice. And another thing too is she would switch into southpaw to cut the ring like a certain way, and then switch into orthodox to cut the ring a different way, which is a pretty high level thing to do, just because it keeps all your weapons open. And eventually it started getting countered, but Aline had the answers to it, because Rosa made the read that every time she would switch to southpaw to start throwing leg kicks, and it was giving her problems in the third round. But ultimately, I just love to see when an athlete is growing their skill set and you can see it fight to fight,
Yeah, most definitely.
All right, moving up to the prelims, we got Grant Dawson versus Diego Ferreira.
I mean, I called this one. I think I was alone on this one.
Nice.
Grant Dawson just looked great. It was one of those where, whether you like the style or not, it wasn't my favorite. I can't say it was a crazy exciting fight, but it was exactly what Grant Dawson needed to do to win that fight, which is utilize his strengths with that wrestling and being able to just be as good at that kind of transition and as strong as he is and maintain that position, and really nullified Diego for much of that fight. It was one of those things where Grant Dawson kind of knew the pattern and just continued to repeat it, and it shut down most of what Diego could do with it. And even on the ground, Dawson wasn't necessarily too worried about the grappling exchanges, which I think was a good way to approach it. Because I think if you get a little fearful with somebody that's really good at jiu-jitsu, you may set yourself up inadvertently to get put in some things that you maybe weren't expecting.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, man. One thing I want to bring up about this fight is the referee stand-up and warning in the middle of his fight. Yeah. Dude, I really feel like things like that need to happen a little bit more often in this context. When you secure a takedown really early in the fight and they can tell you're just fucking body, head, and holding, body, head, holding, you know. If you're not trying to pass, you're not trying to hunt for submissions, you're not trying to land like really big ground and pound, essentially all you're doing is stalling. And if you noticed, after he stood him up, he took him down again, and then all of his ground and pound from there on out for the rest of the fight was like amazing. So it shows that he has that skill set, but there's no penalty for not, you know, just fucking holding him there. So the fact that he penalized him for doing that, and DC even mentioned this on the broadcast, that you get warned before your fights. It's like, hey, we don't want to see this little pitter-patter ground and pound. You need to be going for the finish if you have these positions. And after that stand-up, it really like forced him to be like, okay, if I kind of do this bullshit, then I'm going to get stood up. And I think we need more of that. I think that would solve a lot of really boring fighting styles in the UFC. Because the second he started using that ground and pound, like the whole vibe changed and the fight actually started getting pretty sick.
Yeah, and it was interesting too because there was no warning from the ref to stand them up. He just kind of said that was enough of that position. Let's get up and start over.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was to even the point where the commentators made a comment about it because I think they were kind of taken by surprise at how kind of sudden the ref decided to do it. So I remember, I think it was Joe and DC were just talking shit about, oh, they're never going to let him stand up. He's going to hold this position, whatever. And then they immediately do, and they both freaked out. And it was one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay. Mm-hmm. If we do that, it pushes the action and it forces you to be more methodical with those takedowns. If you're going to get a takedown, do something with it. Don't just hold it. And I think that's a great way to do it because it did change the dynamic and it forced Dawson to push the pressure a little more, which ultimately wasn't a bad thing for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just, at the end of the day, man, Joe Rogan's going to bitch about all stand-ups. But I feel like if you don't have like the feeling of a penalty for stalling and stuff like that and like just trying to halt all the action, then, you know, people are just going to abuse the rules and just do that and win fights. And that's how you end up with Grant Dawson on this massive win streak. I want to say he's, like seven undefeated streak right now, something crazy, since Bobby Green. And he hasn't been anywhere near like the top 15 yet, is because he's putting on performances like this one that he just had. It's like Dana White won't let you break into the top 15 if you're having like shitty performances like that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how that kind of, excitement, whether or not we want it to, plays into your rankings as much as your performances do. It's great to win, but if you're winning in boring fashion, it's almost the same as losing sometimes, it seems.
Absolutely. Like, look at Colby Covington, you know? All of his fights were lame, and they were about to cut him, so that's when he started, like, yapping, you know?
Yeah.
Bogdan Gustaf versus Billy Alakana. Bogdan gets it done, dude.
Billy came out hot. I was surprised to see, and obviously take advantage of the opportunity, right? I believe this was his debut, coming off of like a regional scene. He said, hey man, step in short notice if you want it. And he seemed game. Can't be mad at it. He came in as the favorite, which I think is a little wild, but, good on him. But Bogdan, he's got some good submissions.
Yeah.
That was really nice. I can't be mad at that.
I want to say I was very impressed with Billy Alakana coming in on short notice, up a weight class, and putting on a great first round like that. You can tell he's going to be very, very dangerous fighter and very exciting. Just really nice and fluid, and has a very threatening grappling game. I feel like, honestly, he would be good staying at light heavyweight. I know he's a middleweight right now, but what he just did to Bogdan, who's number 13 in the world, I feel like with a full training camp, he might be able to really fuck up Bogdan. But I will say that reversal at the end of the first round that got him into a dominant position, like you can instantly see that he's just one of those fighters that just waits for his moment, and then boom, it's pretty much over. Bogdan's very talented, and the fact that we got to see a little bit of his grappling in this fight, defensively and offensively, was pretty fun. And I feel like when he did get those positions, he doesn't let them go to waste. He doesn't just be like, oh, the round's almost over, I can chill a little bit because I just lost that whole first round. When he gets that position, he wants to do as much damage as possible, get the finish. And he had Billy Alicana in that rear naked choke at the end of the first round. That was ready to go. If it was just like
a couple more seconds,
that would have been it. So, and ends up getting another finish up against the cage in the second round. Billy Alicana just kind of shrivels up into a ball, and then Bogdan just like gets him in the fucking headlock, the front headlock choke. But you could tell it was just Billy Alicana not being in shape, and it was because the fight was on short notice.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'd like to see him with the camp. I'd like to see him when he's in shape and when he's not just kind of stepping in. But, I think it was a great fight for both of them. I think both of their stocks go up off of this one for sure.
Heck yeah, it was a scrap. Props to Billy for stepping up short notice, too. Bogdan's
absolutely
a killer.
Love that.
All right, we got Zachary Reese versus Azamat Bekoyev. Azamat Bekoyev fucked him up a little bit on the ground and pound there. I knew that once the fight switched to a grappler from Cedric Dumas, that Zachary Reese was in trouble. And so I think, this KO was a pretty brutal one because he got put halfway out, and then the referee came in and finished the job, and it was intense, man. Like he was really out after the referee came in and slammed the back of his head off the mat. It was insane.
Yeah. It was a wild one. It's one of those things where, the refs try to do their best to keep you safe, and unfortunately in this case he gave him a little more whiplash than he had hoped to. Zachary Reese, man, that was a weird one for me because I expected him to be better grappling than I think he was. And maybe that was where I fucked up. Is clearly he's been in more, into the Muay Thai stuff. They were saying he was training in Thailand. He's obviously got the big old Thai tattoo on his back now. His elbows look great. I love that little inside elbow where he was kind of throwing it from this side angle into the bottom guard. That's cool. I think he was a little too comfortable throwing elbows from bottom guard and not really a ton else. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was a handful of moments where, he tried to change the momentum. It seemed weird. He kind of accepted bottom guard in a position where I don't think that makes sense, especially that early in the fight. It seems not in your best case unless you're really crazy at submissions and, you're a Tony Ferguson that can hit a Darce from anywhere, except bottom guard, 2 minutes, 3 minutes into the first round.
Yeah, man. I just feel like bottom position has been less and less effective over the years. You're not seeing, early, even in the 2010s, you were seeing lots of submissions off the bottoms. Triangles, triangles transitions to arm bars, stuff like that. But nowadays, it's so rare to see a submission off the back, especially if they're just playing guard, a quick one. If anything, you'll see it in, a women's MMA match or something like that. But when you're getting to, middleweight and stuff like that, you're rarely seeing, stuff like that happen. And I feel like Azamat was having such good top pressure that Zachary Reese had no other real options, skill set wise, other than throwing strikes from his back. But they were solid strikes. I even wrote that in my notes. It's this guy's kind of a problem off his back. He is doing lots of damage. And then, Azamat lands 2 shots and fucking that's it, But that just shows
maybe Azamat's that good.
Mm-hmm. And he is good because he put him there. He put him in that position. I think it's just the stylistic matchup probably fucked with Zachary Reese a little bit too much, but because he was going from a lengthy strikler to this dude that's built like a fire hydrant and has really good grappling, it's what are you supposed to do against that, But it's unfortunate because Zachary Reese definitely has an exciting style striking wise. I feel like he's one of those people that'd be perfect for karate combat if he gets cut,
He reminds me of a Sam Alvey kind of type where he could get in there, and if we didn't have to worry about going to the ground, he might do pretty well. So,
comparing Zachary Reese to Sam Alvey is crazy. That's wild.
Hey, man, Sam Alvey's having a lot of success over in Karate Combat.
I don't want to hear about it, dude. I don't want to hear about it. All right, man. We'll move up the card. We got Peyton Talbott versus Hani Barcelos.
Man,
Peyton
this
Talbott.
is my biggest loser. This is my biggest loser of the card here was Peyton Talbott, man. I don't know what the fuck that was. I'm a little bummed, man. That was one of those cases where, we obviously fell trapped to it too, right? We were hyping his ass up hard.
Yeah.
And this was just one of those cases where I don't know, man. I really don't know what happened here. I don't know if it was, let's not take any credit away from Barcelos because he did great. He did exactly what he needed to do in this fight to win this fight. And Peyton Talbott seems to have absolutely zero wrestling defense.
Well, I wouldn't say zero, because one thing does need to be said. Ronnie Barcelos does have a very credentialed wrestling background. It's not like he's just some dude from Brazil. Yes. This dude has a lot of wrestling experience outside of doing MMA. So, this is something that he's always implemented in his game. And he's just better at shooting takedowns than Peyton is at defending them. But I will say it was really not cool to see Peyton Talbot get fraud checked in a division that just needs somebody coming up the rankings right now. And I think Peyton Talbot needs to go to Dagestan for 2-3 years, and we just need to forget about him.
Yeah, man. It's one of those things where the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I wanted to compare him to Sean O'Malley. And here's why. So I think he's a worse version of Sean, right? They both had big finishes on the Contender Series. They both had a ton of hype coming into it. Both have super fun striking styles, a lot of potential, a decent amount of wins coming in. Both were undefeated kind of as they were entering and building up their careers in the UFC. The problem is Peyton Talbot's experienced a much higher level of resistance way earlier in his career than Sean ever did.
Whoa, I will counter that, bro.
Please.
Because there was that one fighter that leg kicked him, bro, and he it was the fight IQ that lost him that fight. Where he
was it the one where he broke his foot and then he shot for a takedown? And
then the dude shot for a takedown. So there was some adversity there. This could be his Cheeto Vera fight,
I don't think this is his Cheeto Vera fight because even Cheeto Vera, Sean O'Malley came out of that one mentally undefeated, right? That was an injury. It was a fluke.
He didn't get 30-27,
yeah. He lost that fight. He got TKO'd via leg kicks. That's fucked up. This was worse. This was worse to me. This was significantly worse because this was getting completely dominated by, a great grappler, but not even top 15 in the division. And look at what the division holds now when you have guys like Umar and you have guys like Merab, whose entire style is ruining your day with wrestling.
Yeah, dude. 100%.
Peyton Talbot can't be this bad at grappling in this division.
Yeah.
Because he will have zero success. Anybody better than Barcelos is a really rough night for Peyton Talbot.
That's very true, man. At this point in time, I feel like we obviously know what Peyton Talbot's Achilles heel is. It's just grappling. But
all of it.
But at the same time, back to your Sean O'Malley comparison, I feel like Sean O'Malley didn't fight a grappler of Ronnie Barcelos' caliber until he fought Merab. And Merab is obviously way better. But I mean, Sean O'Malley fought primarily strikers. And then, MMA fighters, nothing crazy good with grappling as Ronnie. But that being said,
what about Aljo?
Oh yeah, Aljo. But I mean, that was a title fight.
Arguably, Aljo has some of the best grappling in the division as well, right?
Yeah, but that wasn't on his way up. That was that was a title fight, bro. He was already at the top.
It was a title fight. It was a title fight, but that's the thing for me though, is I don't think that would have happened if Peyton and Aljo had fought.
Oh fuck no, dude.
I think Sean has a much better control of his range and being able to prevent those takedowns from happening, not just because I think he has better takedown defense, which I do think he does, but because I think Sean has a better striking style than Peyton Talbot does and is able to utilize his striking in a way where those shots can't come at you as often as they did.
Yeah, dude, but I think at that point you're just comparing styles because Sean O'Malley's footwork and how he stands and all that stuff has a lot to do with his takedown defense. Peyton Talbot stands straight up and down, a lot easier to take down than Sean O'Malley, who's in an athletic stance, moving all over the place, really emphasizes footwork. Peyton Talbot doesn't have those skills. So I definitely get what you're saying. He got fraud checked hard. Peyton Talbot got fraud checked, boys. Shit sucks right now.
That was probably the hardest fraud check I've seen in a hot minute. I mean, we can talk about Rebellis to Spain and say that Peyton Talbott might just be on his way out too. I'm not willing to say that just yet because I do think he's early in his career, but I know that I'm not necessarily going to be supporting him in his next fight. And I sure as fuck don't think Peyton Talbott needs to be picking and choosing his fights and fighting like once a year at this point.
Yeah,
we need to see some activity out of somebody that's that low in the division that clearly has a massive skill gap.
Peyton Talbott versus Ryan Hall next at 135, dude.
Yeah, dude. Why not? Sure.
Let's go. All right, we'll move up the card, and this is my biggest winner and loser of this fight card. We got Rener de Ridder versus Kevin Holland. Rener de Ridder being the biggest winner of this card, and Kevin Holland being the biggest loser, because it's just another fight where Kevin Holland just gets fucking ran through in the grappling department. But it's really good to see this from Rener because he's coming from one championship. A lot of people were very critical about his performance against Gerald Meerschaert. And I just think it was a stylistic type of deal there. Jared Meerschaert is obviously a great grappler and has some pretty slick striking. Kevin Holland really just needs to have that sniping perfect shot to be in, like, anywhere good nowadays. And I feel like he's on the verge of honestly being cut. He's lost so many fights in a row.
I think he's 1-5 in his last 6.
And I know Dana White loves him, but dude, like, at this point, like, he's just losing fights. He's kind of being a dickhead about it, He was on the Jackson podcast a week ago saying he didn't give a fuck about his fight this weekend, trying to start shit with Rampage.
Proved it.
And dude, he proved it, man. All that being said, Rener de Ridder's just a savage on the ground. I called it. I knew he was going to submit Kevin Holland. But that just shows you like where his skill level is above somebody like Kevin Holland. So I want to see what they do with Rener next, but it seems like he's just down to keep taking fights. He's Dutch. He's been in this game for a while. He's going to be hungry for a next matchup already. He's already talking about finding another opponent. He said it afterwards. He's like, yo, I'm uninjured. This was a quick one. Let's keep it rolling. And I love to see it, man.
Absolutely. Especially with somebody that's kind of got momentum, right? If you're in a case where you have, the Reiner de Ridder situation here where, came into this first round. And let's talk about that takedown too, because I think that was an underrated one. It was very clean the way he set that up. He popped that jab in there, really stunned Kevin with the jab, which I think Kevin was probably not expecting to get hit that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then immediately was able to kind of set up his hands, clasped his hands, got the takedown. And it was kind of just from there, that back control where he just kept switching sides, locked in a body triangle, just really nice. I think we keep him rolling. I don't think we let him sit. I think we can't do to de Ridder what we did to Chandler, which is like have all this momentum, have all this star power, and Chandler's a little different case, but we can't let him sit on ice, right? This is a guy that if he wants to fight, he's uninjured, let's turn around and do it again.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it seems like he's down for that too, which is just, I love to see it, man. I love to see active fighters, and with his style, it's going to keep him safe in a lot of these matchups. They can keep putting him up against strikers, and he could run through all of them, man. You need to have like some serious grappling, either defense or a submission defense to be able to like stop something like that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
We're gonna move up to the next fight, heavyweight. We got Jailton Almeida versus Sergey Spivak. I'll let you start this one off.
Yeah, man, this was a fun one. It kind of bummed me out. Obviously, I picked this one wrong. Maybe I'm coming around to Almeida. I won't say it. I'm still kind of on that camp of I think he's a little whatever, but Sergey Spivak looked good. I thought Sergey Spivak looked really good. I personally was thinking he was going to win that fight up until he didn't, right? It was
up until he started getting swept?
I was like, dang.
Up until when he gets swept a couple times, you're like, all right, boys, it's going to fucking...
Butterfly sweep bummed me out, but, he was landing. And this is another example, where I think we've seen it a couple times on this card. Somebody that utilized that top pressure position to do actual damage with his ground and pound.
Mm-hmm.
That was a case where it wasn't wrestling to top pressure to hold him there, but he was throwing really heavy shots at Almeida from the top there. And I think, as soon as it switched over, it happened the other way too, where these guys were both utilizing that top pressure position to do damage and then ultimately get the finish from it.
Yeah,
great performance for both of them. I'll give it to Almeida on that one. He looked really good.
Yeah, man. I still don't know where the Almeida hate came from. You might have seen one or two bad performances from him, but ultimately
so.
he gets lots of finishes, man. Like he finishes a lot of his opponents. I know sometimes he'll smudge grapple somebody, but that's just what he needs to get done, to get the job done. Jailton Almeida really was patient while getting beat up from bottom position and all that stuff, but he still found the sweeps that he needed. And then that finishing sequence came from a butterfly sweep, and then he hit an intercepting counter. And then, oh man, it was lights out after that. But his finishing instincts there was amazing. He followed Sergey the whole time. Sergey was doing everything he could to kind of stay safe in there. And Jailton was able to still get the finish, which is awesome to see. He didn't just kind of, because it was the end of the round, when he was starting to get that finish, he had 7 seconds left. So, Jailton could have coasted and all that stuff, but he was like, nah, I'm gonna get the finish right here. I rocked him, chased him all over the octagon, and then eventually got some ground and pound in too. So it was awesome to see.
Really nice.
We're gonna move up to light heavyweight with Yuri Prochazka versus Jamal Hill. Oh my goodness, man.
This was my fight of the night for sure.
100%.
It was my fight of the night. Yuri was actually my biggest winner of this card. Not only because he won this fight, but I think he won this fight in devastating fashion, obviously, over Jamal Hill here. I also really like seeing kind of all of what built up around Yuri, right? It was, I love the support of the fan that he brought and shaved his head for the cancer support and all that. Love that. Good guy, Yuri. We can't go wrong there. But beyond that, I think the big thing for me was seeing a true evolution in Yuri, in that he did start to implement some changes. He even talked about it afterward. He's like, oh yeah, you know what? I needed to do head movement and I needed to keep my hands up a little bit. And he did that. And I think that was a really nice thing to see over Jamal Hill, who's no joke, right? Jamal Hill was champ at one point, top of the division still. But Yuri was able to be that evolution of the guy that clearly can beat anybody not named Alex Pereira.
100%, man. That's the only person he's lost to. So I think with Yuri Prochazka, man, and I even brought this up in our predictions video, when it comes to Yuri Prochazka, he has a very, aggressive style that is not the most defensively sound, but it works for him because of his head movement. And it's been there for a while, but when you're fighting Alex Pereira, who's literally the best in the world at landing that left hook, you're just gonna run into problems. And it's not like Yuri is not somebody that is a readable fighter. Like, you can make reads on him, but capitalizing on them and fighting in the pocket with Yuri, it's gonna be bad news unless you have one shot knockout power. And that's where Jamal Hill was running into, is he would try and combination strike with Yuri in the pocket, and his head movement would essentially make it so everything, he was just hitting air. And Yuri was looking for that pull counter, pull and then cross from Jamal Hill, and that's eventually what he got the KO with. He hit a pull cross and then hit the hook too after it. And just great reads by Yuri. I like seeing, the improvements of his game. And Jamal Hill came out there ready to fight too, man. He was game. He was trying to win. He looked like he was in shape. And it's one of those fights where, based off that performance, it's kind of tough to see him lose.
Yeah, it's a bummer. It's one of those things where I think Jamal Hill still has a lot of potential. Do I see him ever getting a title again? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, I don't think as long as Alex is there, probably not. But I can see that he is continuing to try and get better. He's not willing to just completely coast on the skills that he has, right? But the problem is neither was Yuri, and so I think they both improved. And it was just a matchup of styles. Yuri has always done well against southpaws too. He's always had better luck that way, and I think it is because that cross counter is there a little bit better, where he can pull off of that rear hand. Whereas if you're open stance, that's not necessarily there in the same way. So I think this was a great one. It was definitely my fight of the night. It was a exciting one for sure, and it could have been its own main event on a different card.
Yeah, man. Sure. Any Yuri Prochazka fight could easily be a main event, man. This guy is always entertaining. He's never had a boring fight. He always comes. He always comes for ultimate violence. And yeah, man, I can't say enough good things about Yuri, man. That he's such a good thing to have around at light heavyweight right now. Yeah,
man, he's definitely one of the most unique, one of the most exciting fighters in the division, and I think it kind of truly gets into, what the spirit of the UFC was supposed to be, which is kind of this amalgamation of all these different martial arts coming together, not just kickboxers and wrestlers. We get to see some kind of different things from folks every now and then, and it's always refreshing.
Yeah, like we have a Viking man that fucking trains in the woods playing with samurai swords and shit, like just
absolutely
knocking everybody out, dude. And
yep.
one thing that like I can't stress enough is Jiri is he has great defense when it comes to that head movement. It might be the best that we will see at that weight class. So when you see him with his hands down, it is literally to bait those counters. It's not something that he's doing because he's not skilled. It's not something he's doing because he doesn't have technique. It's just part of his fighting style to have his hands down like that and use a lot of head movement. It's not always the most recommended thing to do in MMA, but Jiri Prochazka has found amazing success with it. And if you're going to be in the pocket and be in the fire, you need to, like, you can't have your hands up blocking your vision all the time, and it makes you a bigger target to be hit. So I feel like Jiri found a good balance there, and it was a great performance by him.
It's a modified goblin.
Modified goblin stance,
It's a modified goblin. It's round 4, Alex versus Khalil Roundtree, hands down, lots of head movement, just a little more European.
Exactly, dude. So
I love it.
With all that being said, we'll move on to the bantamweight title fight with Merab Dvalishvili versus Umar Nurmagomedov. Oh man, I was really bummed because I liked Umar a lot more in this fight. But Merab, man, it just shows that he literally has infinite cardio. He's never going to get tired.
Holy cow.
You can go out there and you can force him to use all of his grappling skill set and strike and be on his bike the whole time. And he'll still find ways to just zap all your energy away and just take it to himself,
Yeah, he's got something special going on. And I mean, the fact that he was able to do that and then even showboat kind of as the fight went on. There's that one moment where he's, defending a takedown from Umar who's hanging off of him, and he's just kind of standing there walking with him. And you're like, shit, man. Talk about a dude that has a solid base. Like, that's a different level of strength when it comes to the wrestling game. And I don't know that anybody's going to ever beat Merab at wrestling in this division. I think somebody's going to really have to find a way to force him to strike and force him to strike at range. And I don't know that there's a ton of those people. I'd love to see Corey Sandhagen just fight again, but I think that could be fun, even though I don't know that it goes super different. I don't know, man. I don't know what you do with Merab after this, just because he's made the best in the division look like chumps, right? I mean, we saw him pick up and carry Henry Cejudo around. We saw him, just dominate Sean O'Malley for 5 rounds. We saw him do what he did to Umar for 5 rounds. I mean, I don't know what you do with Merab after this.
Yeah, man, it's just one of those things that you run into. Like, it's the same thing with Pantoja, when you have such a dominant champ at the top that just runs through everybody and no one's able to have an answer for him. That is Merab, to do what he did to a Nurmagomedov dude is insane. Like, that's like the highest caliber of grappling you can have in MMA, because they're, they fucking grapple since they're 3 years old, bro. So the fact that Merab was able to, defend Umar's takedowns, essentially take Umar down, all this stuff, it's just, you're going to have to shut his lights off. And I feel like even that is a big ask, because he has such a big head.
It's a big ask.
Or you just need to catch him being dumb. I think
Sean's our best bet. I think that's probably the next fight to make, is they're going to do the rematch with Sean O'Malley. I think if Sean can have that lightning in a bottle moment again, right, and he can catch him like he did Aljo, I think that's the best chance of it happening. But Merab is he's different than Aljo. He's not really willing to stretch himself out in a way where he's so unprotected. And even if he does, it doesn't really seem to matter. He's just going to do something else.
It's only on his entries, bro. Merab has terrible entries. Umar was landing a lead hook over the shoulder of Merab every time he would come in. But he's just so durable, and where you're going to be hitting him is going to be in like the topper part of his head, because you're going over the shoulder. So you need to intercept him when he's blitzing in, and that's just such a big ask. Like, that is like hitting lightning in a bottle. But with that being said, like, even doing that, you're probably going to break a hand before you KO Merab.
Yeah.
So
it might take a couple.
A striker like O'Malley, does he have the capability to like land an intercepting knee or a cross? He has the best at that weight class. He's the best chance at the weight class. But other than that, man, I don't see anybody else having anything for Merab. If Figueiredo, you know, he would be somebody that I could see having a path to victory against Merab because he does have sneaky submissions, and he's really good at having forward pressure and having really big power in his hands. But even then, dude, I just see anybody getting like just fucking mauled by Merab, you know?
Yeah, man, it's a tough one. It's not exciting to watch. I mean, it's exciting. It's not.
I don't enjoy watching it personally.
Style.
I think it's an ugly
I'm not
style.
a huge fan.
But I mean, I got to give him props, man. Like he's winning.
Yeah.
He's beat all the best. You got to kind of
Found the way.
He's kind of getting into that GOAT conversation of bantamweight, regardless of how pretty you think his style is. But yeah, man. Ultimately, Merab's probably going to be here to stay for a while.
I think so.
All right, man. So we'll move on to
somebody here to stay. Holy shit.
We got Islam Makhachev, dude, versus Renato Moicano, and this fight went exactly how we predicted it. Me and Ryan were talking about how Renato has an opportunity to make a big moment happen, and he did. Whether it was it was a slip from Islam or he caught him with that punch that made him like fall off balance, had a little bit of a moment there. But ultimately, once Islam got top position, the fight was over. Like, there's really nothing you can do. And I really didn't see any path to victory for Moicano if he did start getting taken down. So.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they said it during the broadcast, and I think it's hard to argue at this point. You know, Islam is a generational talent. He's one of those guys that I think as long as he's got the belt, it's going to stay with Islam. I don't see anybody beating him. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm looking at the division. What he did to Renato was, you know, maybe we all kind of saw it coming, right? It's a big change in opponent. Renato is not the caliber that even Armin is. But to do it that quick, man. To do it that quick and with such a nasty Darce setup is it's special for sure.
Yeah, dude. I don't see a lot of people in that division finishing Moicano in the first round. I think if he's fighting most of the people at lightweight, you know, if he's not beating them, he's either losing in a very close decision or maybe like a late finish there. But Islam running through him in a round and making it look as easy as it did is crazy. That Darce was nice. Mighty Mouse was talking about how nice Islam's Darce is. It's like his signature move and Islam's favorite submission. So the fact that he just saw the opportunity for it and just snatched it up in seconds just shows you how talented he is. And man, I just gotta say, Islam is fucking cool as shit. Taking the fight on short notice, getting the submission, and then just acting like it's another day in the office. As for who I think can beat him, I do think Ilia Topuria has the skill set to beat Islam. But like I said, man, like he's one of my favorite fighters. He's very dominant, and Islam is fucking. I don't see him going anywhere. I think he goes up to welterweight, runs through a lot of them. But
yeah, I think so too. I mean, they were saying he walks around big.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying he walks around. He could potentially even fight at middleweight. I don't know that that's what he should do. I think he'll face a size advantage if it goes up that high. You know, yeah, it's one of those things where like I don't know that anybody besides Ilia gives him a chance right now. Nobody in his division. I think he's pretty much cleared that out in any conversation around the potential there. Maybe it's Patty though, man. Maybe Patty's got it.
I was gonna say, I was like, yo, dude, let Patty Pimblett in there, boys.
let Pimblett in there, bro. I think we got to get, you know, I don't think this is necessarily a bad performance from Moicano either. I don't necessarily see him falling too far from this one, but yeah, Islam's something special. He's got to be the coolest from Dagestan.
100%, man. I think Islam is one of the funniest fighters in the UFC too, and I really like that he's really separated himself from the shadow of Khabib, and now it's like, okay, Khabib walked, so Islam could, you know, run, you know, kind of thing.
Yes.
And
he's Khabib 2.0.
100% Khabib 2.0. He's not scared to put on exciting performances and strike, you know, when he needs to, and also he just. When he gets on the ground, it's real no nonsense. It's like I'm gonna take you down, and then you're gonna get submitted. Like that's just how it goes. But yeah, man, ultimately I think it was a pretty decent card. Not the best, not the worst. There was a lot of really like lame decisions on there with a lot of smudge grappling, but at the end of the day, you know, the matchups were pretty solid, and yeah, I think it was a pretty solid card overall.
Yeah, man. You know, excited for the next one. The only thing I will mention on this one, because it's my my honorable mention here, is I think the biggest winner for this one is Alex Pereira. Got one of the biggest pops from the crowd. I think we heard all night when they announced his fight against Ankalaev. Fuck yeah on him for taking a true number one contender, right? You know, that's the fight we all needed to see. It's the fight that's supposed to happen. So I'd love to see that. And I also love to see Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker being officially announced. That's a crazy one, and I can't wait for that.
Absolutely, man. 2 fire matchups for UFC. Is it 313?
313.
Yeah, so that's going to be a great one. Magomed is finally getting his title shot against Alex Pereira. I don't think it's going to go the way he thinks it's going to go. I think he's going to get flatlined. And Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker is going to give us candidate for Fight of the Year probably. And we're going to see if Dan Hooker still has it. And we're going to see, you know, Justin Gaethje is talking about this being his last fight. Is it really going to be his last fight? Who knows? But, yeah, some great matchups being announced. And, yeah, man, ultimately it was a fucking solid night. So remember to like, comment, and subscribe, everybody. Thank you guys for watching. This was another post-fight perspective. Peace.